Welcome, everyone, to the Cardano Effect podcast, episode 35. The purpose of this podcast is to take high-level developer information and projects that are occurring within the Cardano space and break them down into bite-sized, consumable pieces of information for everyday use. I'm your host, Philippe, and let's get this podcast started. So we have the three hosts of the Cardano Effect podcast on today, Sebastian, Rick, and myself, and we have a couple of special guests. The clues are in the shirt, and if you can see the thumbnails down below. So we're going to get right into the mix of things. We have a lot of Reddit questions, and we have a lot of things to talk about. So we're really excited about this episode. If you missed episode 34, it was the Cardano Shelly testnet rollout. We had Samuel Leathers, we had David Esser, and we had Alejandro Garcia. And we talked about everything about the Shelly testnet, so you can get involved. The community is very excited. Join us in Telegram. Follow us on Twitter. Please consider supporting this podcast by subscribing, liking these videos, sharing these videos. We really appreciate you. We just passed the 5,000 subscriber mark, so we really appreciate that. If you like what you see, if you don't like what you see, still subscribe. Keep on tabs of what we're doing. We're trying to improve week by week. That being said, none of what we say on this podcast is financial advice. Remember, you are your best financial advisor. And if you don't think you are, you need to find someone who's qualified to do so. So without further ado, Rick, how are you doing this morning? What's going on?
Hey, Philippe, I'm doing great. Thanks. Calling in here from Virginia this time around. Nice and warm here in this mid-July afternoon, mid-morning for us. And I've got a few things. We have the podcast is available on Google Play Music, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Radio Public. It's also available on pretty much any app you have out there. If there's an app that is not supported, please let me know, and I'll see if we can get support on that app. So what we have today is Chief Technology Officer Nicolás Arqueros returning to the podcast. He was first on the podcast during episode 2, where he and Sebastian gave us a description of Yoroi. We also have new to the podcast, Ruslan Dudin. He is a software project manager at Emurgo, working on all these great products and projects we see coming out of Emurgo. I'm glad to have him on the podcast with us today. So there have been so many developments in the last 8 months since Nico was last on here talking about Yoroi in its very early versions. We're now on Yoroi 1.8 and all the other developments, including the Seiza block explorer, the staking simulator, Soshin. Did I say Soshin correctly, Sebastian? Soshin.
Yeah,
Soshin, got it. Okay. We had Sire, and there was an academy in Emurgo, India. That's a separate part of Emurgo here, but so many developments coming to Emurgo. And I just want to say welcome to the podcast, gentlemen, both Nico and Ruslan. How are you guys doing today?
At least on my side, pretty good. Thank you for having me again.
All right, and thanks for coming back. Ruslan, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Ruslan Dudin. How are you doing today, Ruslan?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's finally summer in St. Petersburg, so we have few occasional days when it's not absolutely raining in mud. So doing pretty well.
Okay, good, because every time I hear about something from Russia, I'm thinking you guys are in the permafrost zone or in the Arctic tundra, but I guess it's kind of nice in Moscow right now. All right, so guys, let's start with Yoroi. We're on Yoroi 1.8. There's been some great advancement just came out. Sebastian just demonstrated one in a video that came out yesterday that has to do with sending URLs. And both Sebastian and Ruslan, both of you guys, do you write code for Yoroi? Yoroi, to pronounce it correctly.
Yeah, I can answer that. So I mostly write code for it. So that's mostly what I do every day. Obviously, it's not the only thing I do. I do the monthly progress updates, also talk with the rest of the team about Seiza and all the other projects we're working on. But my core activity is coding for Yoroi and kind of helping our team code for Yoroi. So Yoroi is not just me, it's not just Nico, it's not just Ruslan. We actually have a fairly large team of engineers. And so I talk with our other engineers often about the approach, the design, with features we should work on and prioritize next.
Awesome. And Ruslan, do you write code for Yoroi as well?
On my side, regarding Yoroi, I am mostly just helping Seba to plan stuff, to plan for new features, to think of new designs on how features should work. stuff like this. But the development is mostly on his side. Occasionally, I can help with some code, like with paper wallets or something like that, but it's mostly just like occasional side projects that then grow into new features.
Excellent. And some of the earliest features we saw released in there was the ability to, in the earlier versions of Yoroi, was the ability to import a dataless wallet directly into Yoroi. So for users who are not aware of that, you can import dataless wallet into Yoroi. You can also create the paper wallets. I don't remember which version that came out with. It's in the release notes. Most people don't really look at the release notes, but you can go back and look and see which features came out with each version. And so what other features came out? We had a theme generator. I took a shot at that one time. So import dataless, import paper wallets. You got the theme generator created where you can change the colors and save it. I gave it a shot. I actually changed the colors, but I didn't know how to export it. What was your guys' level of involvement with creating those features?
Yeah, so I can talk about the theme export feature. That was actually developed by a community member. So we had somebody from the community who's really interested in Yoroi and Cardano. And he said, okay, I want to do a feature that's not too hard. It seems reasonable to do as somebody who's doing this as volunteer work. And so I gave him the design for what a feature export feature would look like. And then he did the implementation and I reviewed their code. So I thought some people asked us, like, why did you prioritize this? It seems like kind of random. It was because it was, free, right? So somebody did it for us. But a lot of the features we did, like paper wallets, those were entirely in-house. Some other large features, obviously, Trezor integration, Ledger integration. Obviously, language options was a large thing. The first version of Yoroi, I believe, was English, Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. But now we have probably double, 3 times the amount of languages available, and we'll continue to add more languages. The app has also been entirely redesigned. So if you find screenshots of Yoroi 1.0 or 1.1 and compare them to what the application looks now, it looks way, way better. We've also ported some of the extension functionality to a mobile wallet, right? The last time we came on the podcast, we didn't have Yoroi for mobile yet, but now we do. There's always a delay between getting features out from the extension onto mobile, and we hope to kind of shorten that loop going forward. But be aware that if you want to access a lot of these features we talk about today, the extension is kind of the place to go for now, and hopefully as time goes on, the mobile application will have more and more of those features. We're also always working on new features, so the new release has some cool stuff like the ability to generate payment URLs that you can send to your friends. So it's kind of like a very simple invoice system currently on the extension. Hopefully we'll get that mobile in the future. We also added some stuff like the ability to send all, right? So for example, sometimes you want to migrate your wallet, right? So for example, you bought a Trezor wallet and you want to send all the ADA on your old wallet to your new wallet. So to facilitate that process, we added a send all feature. For the paper wallets, we not only have the Yoroi paper wallets, which is a completely new construction, we have the ability to transfer from the dataless paper wallets. So if you want to upgrade from a dataless paper wallet to a Yoroi paper wallet, that's also possible. We also integrated with Explorers. So now from Yoroi, you can access Seiza, ADA Scan, Cardano Blockchain Explorer, all your favorite explorers. And I'm sure there's more features we're missing that I forgot to mention now. But it's been a huge amount of work. It represents the engineering work of not just me, but multiple people across almost a year now since the Yoroi project started. And our team's bigger than ever. So if you actually look at the GitHub activity chart, you can see over time that just the amount of commits goes up over time. That represents our team growing as we grow our user base. And as a business, we realize people really love what we do, and we really need to keep our users happy and keep driving the Cardano ecosystem by investing more into Yoroi development. And obviously, Yoroi is not all we do, so I'll let Ruslan and Nico talk about the other things we've done later on. But I just want to kind of lay out some of the updates we've done since our first release.
Awesome. Thanks for that summary, Sebastian. And for viewers who are new to Cardano, even though this is episode 35, you still got to look at the point that you got new people coming into the system. Yoroi does support Ledger and Trezor. the Trezor Model T and the Ledger Nano S. And does it support Ledger Nano X with the cable connected?
Yep.
Okay, so you got to connect the cable for the Ledger X, but the Bluetooth, if you use it by Bluetooth, that won't yet enable. That's something outside of our control at this point in time. But just be aware of those new features. So the addition of the hardware wallets was added in there. The send all is a useful feature because if you ever tried to clean out a wallet, I'm actually kind of particular about that. I don't ever want to leave like one Lovelace. So it takes like 30 seconds for you to sit there to find the exact number to send everything out of the wallet, but the send all button will calculate it for you. So for your convenience, hit the send all button, but also it's a double-edged sword. You got to keep in mind, if you hit send all, it's going to send all of it. It's all going. So don't hit that button unless you really need it. The theme generator, I would like to challenge the community. If somebody wants to make a dark theme, I don't really care for the dark themes. I stick to the light themes, but that would be interesting to see if someone sets up a dark theme version, or if you want to copy the colors from the Seiza webpage. Seiza, I keep saying that wrong. Seiza. Those are pretty cool colors. Those might make for a nice Yoroi layout if somebody wants to give that a shot and see how that works. Let me think. Other features, the payment URL that you showed me this morning, Sebastian, and you put in yesterday's video. That's an interesting feature that users can use. For example, let's say Sebastian, I owe him 5 ADA. He can send me a payment URL that says, send 5 ADA to this wallet. I copy and paste it into Yoroi. Boom. It generates the transaction for 5 ADA. I simply sign it, and the correct amount goes to the correct wallet. Is that pretty much correct, Sebastian? That's how we practiced this morning?
Yeah, so the reason we decided to develop this feature is because if you look at reasons why people don't send their crypto, obviously there's the reason that people keep it as an investment and so they don't want to send it. There's also the fact that people feel really insecure about sending their crypto, right? They're not sure if they got the address wrong, and they kind of have a mini panic attack every time they have to send a crypto to an address, especially if it's a large amount. And so we gave a lot of thought about how do we help solve this problem and make people have more assurance, more confidence that they're sending to the right person the right amount. And so we worked with D-Lab, one of our fellows there, to basically come up with something called the SIRE protocol, which is a way to try and solve the transaction assurance problem, but it's not the only option, right? There's different ways different people in the blockchain ecosystem have come up with, and we want to try and implement a variety of different ways and give users options, because they're usually all good for different circumstances. So Robert's proposal, Robert is our fellow, it's useful for a certain situation, and these payment URLs are useful for a separate situation. And so you'll see probably in the coming months, Yoroi will have more and more integrations with payment systems, more and more ways to do invoices, to send transactions, to keep track of transactions. And this is all towards our goal of being your gateway to the financial world, right? So we announced this new motto at the IOHK Summit earlier this year. And I think for Yoroi right now, we're almost to the point where we have basically every feature you'd really want from a wallet. If you've come from any other ecosystem, any other cryptocurrency, and you open Yoroi, chances are we have all the features you're used to. And there's some small ones that we don't quite have, but we're going to get them all by Q3, I think. And so now we have to really focus on our long-term vision, right? What do we want to be? And we settled on being your gateway to the financial world. And the reason we set on this is because if you look at cryptocurrencies, even in the dApps ecosystem, a lot of people have settled on DeFi, right? It's all about financial applications. Obviously, stuff like games have taken off to some degree, but mostly dApps and usage of cryptocurrencies revolves around financial applications. And so we thought this is really something that we have to focus on and that we think will attract the most users. And so this payment URL feature is kind of our first step into this vision. And we have a lot of more features that we're working on currently, a lot of features we have planned that'll continue to drive us towards that kind of long-term goal.
Excellent.
Very, very interesting, Sebastian. I have a follow-up question for you guys. So recently on the Emurgo Twitter, you were at a restaurant in Japan that was accepting ADA for meals. And this micro payment invoice system that Emurgo is working on, is this something that is consumer to consumer, or is this something that could be utilized for business to consumer, saying that the business that's actually producing these invoices can produce them in a timely fashion to send to their customers immediately for example, the food payment that Emurgo just tweeted about?
Yeah, so I think it'll help in that kind of situation, because if you look at some of the videos of the event, the way people work is that the shop owner would have a QR code, right, on their phone, and the people who would pay for those who don't know, by the way, there's a famous restaurant in Japan that started accepting ADA payment, and so we had a launch event where we had, I don't know how many people, probably like 50 people, maybe more, show up to eat there, and then everybody paid in ADA. And so if you look at the payment that happened, basically the store would have their QR code on their phone, and the people, as they're leaving, they pull out their phone, scan the QR code, input the amount, and then send, right? And so they had written on like a board, like, today's meal is however much ADA, okay? But the problem we had is that although payment is very fast, right? You just scan a QR code, input a number, and send. It's not really ideal because you don't want the customer to be inputting the number, right? It'd be easier if they scan a QR code, and not only does it pre-fill the address, it also pre-fills the amount, right? And so if we had this feature earlier, it would have been helpful in this kind of situation, which is why we want to develop these kinds of payment systems and invoice systems. And so this is kind of the rationale for why we're building towards this.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I think that works in the future. And if they can create it in a timely fashion, it can expand from just a restaurant model to just a regular store model, whichever stores want to accept this. And online works as well, because you could generate invoices automatically and then send it to your customer. And that would probably be a great use case for that. I wanted to talk. Oh, Nico, you wanted to say? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to add something that's like pretty interesting. Sometimes you can think a lot of the projects from Emurgo, they're like really diverse and maybe they don't connect. But for example, this specific topic is really interesting because it connects like different projects. And one of them is from Robert Kornacki, which you guys already mentioned with like the SIRE protocol, which is for invoices. And this is like pretty good for like payment certainty for businesses. And also, like 5 minutes ago, we were talking about this URL link that you could like use to like do payments. So actually, these two things and the restaurant connect pretty well, because if we have the protocol and also we have this easy way to send payments, we could have like easy to pay payments, because you wouldn't have to be like typing an address, and this could happen like in real life with the QR code. But also on top of that, you could have the payment certainty that everything's going well. And also these like things that we're focusing, because Yoroi is trying to focus in like everything that's like more related to financial. And right now this is only like the first wave of like things that we are able to do. But when we get Gogen and smart contracts, we already started working like a lot of new things that are also going to be complementing with this. And we are like pretty excited.
Okay, so let me try to understand this. Some kind of rapid. You have SIRE, one protocol. Then you have this new payment URL in Yoroi, and somehow those two communicate. I remember SIRE has some kind of ability to wrap the transaction inside to hide it. How does that interface work? With SIRE, I could send you an invoice. With Yoroi, you could send me a payment URL. So I guess at some point you're going to kind of like bring the two together so that it's one relatively simple transaction. Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, so basically we can think of like two cases scenario. One that we are like in real life. So basically right now in Yoroi Mobile, you can scan a QR code that's only for like the address. It doesn't contain like the amount of money that you want to send. So for example, if you need to pay like 103 ADA.679.123, like it's typing the thing, it should be like super fast. So that's why like the payment URL is like pretty easy, because it could be embedded in the same QR code. And basically, you will scan the QR code, you will confirm, and then you will autofill like the address and also the amount. And in the other side, for example, if you are going to pay something that you are not in real life, you always have like the fear that maybe there is like a middleman, some sort of like attacker, or like maybe like actually someone copy paste the address wrong, or like whatever happens, you want certainty that if you're going to pay for something, actually you're paying to the right person and everything's going to go well. So that's why Robert has been working on this, and he has been doing like great progress. So with these two things, we can combine them for some specific cases, or for depending on the circumstances, we can get to like solve like a lot of like different solutions. So these are like a little bit like Lego pieces that we can put together or not. And the idea is that we are going to complement with the platform that we are using, like Seiza, Yoroi, and some others.
Nico, I had a quick follow-up question. So is this something that's static or dynamic? Like, for example, in this current market, prices are very volatile. So say you send an invoice to someone and it's a restaurant that's working and the ADA value drops the next day. Is this something that could time out after 24 hours and you'd have to regenerate a new invoice based on the current market prices? Or is this something that just remains static and has no sort of change over time?
This is like a really good question. And this is one of the things that I'm thinking about like solving, and like something that could be like pretty cool to solve this problem is that when we get smart contracts, we could be using oracles, which basically means that it's a trusted source of like some truth. And basically what we could be like doing with this is we could like set times, so something expired. Also, we could like peg the price to yen, to USD dollar, or to something else. And this way we could like be doing like payments in like with more customization. So right now we have like the first wave of innovation, but on top of this, the idea is to continue building more like Legos on top of them, so we can have like cooler stuff.
That's excellent. So basically, you're getting the right money to the right person, and it's more automated and faster. I like that. That's a good way to get towards the mass adoption side of things.
And for example, you also got when we get like smart contracts, we can also combine with like, for example, you actually come to this restaurant quite often, so you could apply like some discounts automatically. And for example, what is like being really interesting is that in there are smart contracts, like you can also do like recurrent payments automatically. So sometimes maybe you don't even need to pay, and you could just have like subscription and other type of payment methods that right now they're like blocked, because every time that you want to pay for something, you manually need to pay for that.
Okay.
And what will be cool that you can have a subscription, but you can cancel it at any time, but you don't need to be like doing manually every time.
Okay. And eventually with the smart contracts, I could do like, once I buy 5 tacos, I get 1 free. Yay.
Rick, we were speaking about that in the mass adoption episode. I think one of the beginning episodes about how like coupons and loyalty points, if this could get introduced into the blockchain, it would bring more people in, the everyday people who are concerned about saving and making sure that their money stretches as far as possible. So that's good. I wanted to migrate over to Seiza, and I wanted to ask you three, what was the inspiration behind Seiza? What's this whole thing about the staking simulator? Can you give us more details of what's going on? The screenshots look really good. What's going on? And I have a feeling that Ruslan is working on this, because if you're not familiar with Ruslan, goes by the username Vantis Subhuman, and he's been involved with Cardano for a while, and he was pulling statistics back in the day. And I have a feeling that he's working on this as well. So if you three wanted to say something about Seiza and what's going on there.
I can start, and then Ruslan can jump in, and then Seba also can add stuff, because actually like the three of us have been working, but we complement each other. So basically what we saw is that currently there are like obviously different blockchains, and all of them, they have like a way to visualize what is going on with like the blockchain explorers. But And even in Cardano, we have like a few. And for example, one of them, AdaScan, is actually pretty good. But the problem that we saw is that as you guys know, we are going to move to Shelly. And we are going to have a staking and a lot of changes that are like unique to Cardano. And usually making like a blockchain explorer based in UTXOs, which is like the accounting model that Cardano uses, and it's the same one that Bitcoin uses, is like kind of straightforward in so many ways. But when Shelly comes with the staking, it's like a whole new protocol that you need to understand how it works so you can display the information correctly. So it's a lot of work. And what we were afraid as Emurgo is that maybe this is going to be too much for open source project, because maybe some other projects are going to come up later on, but we need something as soon as available so everyone can like see what's going on with the network, because it's not just like I'm going to check like a specific address and see how much money it has, but actually you want to see how's the network evolving, how decentralized are we, how many transactions are going on. So you want something that tells you a story behind what's going on with staking. So that was like one of our inspirations to build Seiza, that we could like build something that first is going to tell us a story. So we don't want to take pictures of like, right now, this is what's going on. You want to have like a video. This is how it was a week ago. This is how it was 2 weeks ago. This is how it was 3 weeks ago. And then you have like, you can see like if it's growing and how fast it's growing. So this is something that we usually don't see in blockchain explorers, and that's why we want to start pushing for a lot of charts that's going to display information, and also we're going to explain what are you looking at and how this relates to some of like the critical components that we're trying to push with Cardano. And the second thing is that also we have like different type of communities with like different backgrounds. For example, we have a community in the States, we have a community in Europe, but also we have communities in Asia, like for example in Japan, and people have like different backgrounds, and especially in Japan, maybe a lot of people, they are not like that tech savvy, but they're like more like financial, like knowledgeable, and also in maybe we have like people that are like doing like more researchy, or like they're traders. So we have like different type of people, and this is what it's called in like when you do design personas. So we have like at least 3 different type of personas, and so it's really important that we are not just pointing to like the global, a little savvy people, but also to like specific people from other countries. So that's why we wanted to push Seiza for a way that it could be easier for people that are not super tech savvy, or for example, that they are not even using a computer and they want to be using their phones, because for example, in Japan, they don't use that much desktops anymore. They use like their phones for everything. And that's why also in Yoroi, we got to be, I think, like the first top app for financial, new apps in financial with Yoroi, which was like very cool, but also a little surprising, because like we got like a lot of downloads because just people use more cell phones and they were like waiting for that. So that's the second part. And the third part is that also what we want to see is that Seiza could integrate with like wallets and other products. And we are going to be, as Emurgo, we are like the venture arm of Cardano, and we also work with partnerships. So we want to be able to work with partners so they can connect to Seiza API, or that Seiza could talk to them. So we want to make everything more interconnected, and as Emurgo, we are in like a really good position to be pushing for that. So that's like a little overview of why we wanted to do Seiza, and we started working in Seiza like early January. So it's been a lot of time already. And right now we have like most of, practically Seiza is already working, and it's working pretty good. And the second step that we also already working on is that we can display all the information related to staking. So the idea is that hopefully as soon as we have like testnet number 3, which is the one that's going to have like incentives, Seiza is going to release like a new button that it's going to allow you to change from mainnet to testnet, and you're going to be able to like see everything that's going on in the testnet with Seiza. And also, obviously, the plan is that as soon as Shell is out, Seiza is going to be fully capable of following up with everything that's going on. And the last thing that I wanted to mention about Seiza is that we have been doing a lot of work with Seiza, a lot of work, and we don't want other people to go through the pain that we went through. So that's why we work with the Cardano Foundation, and they also understood pretty well all the work that's required, and that's why we are going to be like open sourcing most of Seiza. So if someone else wants to create like a blockchain explorer, maybe they want to focus in something different, then not to have to do all the work from scratch, but rather they're going to be able to use the open source part of Seiza that we are also going to be using, and that way we're going to make sure that always been updated, and that way they can come up with something faster, and hopefully this is going to help Cardano to have more alternatives. And we are like super grateful for the support from Cardano Foundation for this specific open sourcing project.
Excellent. So basically there's two ways that the developers can interact with Seiza. They can either go to the open source code base to write new features, or they can reach out to the API. Is that a good summary right there, basically?
Yeah, sort of. But the open source part is that, for example, if other blockchain explorers, I don't know, someone wants to create a new blockchain explorer focusing like different type of settings, or maybe they just want to work with like a different way to visualize like stake pools, they don't need to build everything from scratch. So instead of starting from 0, they can start from like 80% or like 90%. So they only need to build like that 10%. And also for other current blockchain explorers, it's going to be difficult to update to the new code base. So maybe they could even use like the open source version so they can like update themselves and continue working.
What if a stake pool operator wants to put a widget inside their stake pool webpage? Can they reach out to the Seiza API and extract the chart that they want to display alongside their stake pool?
So the Seiza, we are going to be open source the code, but through other projects that we are also going to open source, we are going to be open source like everything related to like APIs. So the thing in coding is that maybe you can be using like different sources or like different type of APIs, and we have been working with like the two most like well-known so far. The first one is like just a REST API, which is like what every developer uses, but also we want to be using cooler stuff and stuff that are like more modern. So for example, for Seiza, something like really cool that we did is that we are using GraphQL, which is like I can try to explain it in like super simple terms. So for example, when you do a REST API, you every time you get like the same format in the response. So for example, if you are asking for like a transaction information and it has like 40 fields, you're going to get the 40 fields. So it's not really wise in like bandwidth, because sometimes you're going to get information that you don't need. But with GraphQL, what is like pretty cool is that you can tell the software what actual parameters you want to receive. So instead of, if you want to receive some specific information from a transaction, you just ask for that specific information. So instead of getting 40 parameters, maybe you only get 3. So this makes everything actually work faster, and also is like cleaner. And for like the developers, we don't need to have like, I don't know, 50 different methods to grab information, because with one method you can select which things you want, which things you don't want. So also this is like the part that no one sees, or the normal user doesn't see from Seiza, is something that we're also bringing up, and also we want to be open source this.
Okay, thanks. And so, sorry, Philippe, you had a question?
No, go ahead.
All right. I was wondering, Ruslan, where do you fit in all this thing? What projects have you been working on?
Oh, Seiza actually was one of the projects I was mainly working on, among other things, which we opening soon too. And yeah, regarding Seiza, the only thing that I can add is that we should probably just think of Seiza right now in the same manner as of the Cardano network itself and Cardano project right now. And it's basically like Cardano 0.1. It's a Seiza 0.1. We can already do stuff with it, and it works well, and it's cool stuff as Cardano itself. but we're all waiting for Shelly. And Shelly is actually when Cardano becomes like 1.0 actual full-blown like experience. And well, not smart, not including smart contracts yet, of course. And it's also when Seiza becomes basically what it was built for, Seiza 1.0. And that's when all the fun stuff ought to be opened and visible. And so the idea in building all this like an ecosystem of projects in Emurgo was basically about that we want to give the community an overall experience of Cardano from different sides. So you can use Cardano blockchain with Yoroi. You can observe Cardano blockchain with Seiza. You can interact with Cardano blockchain as a developer with our APIs and our libraries. And so every project is, we don't want to deliver it as some one giant bundle program that just does more than it should. And so all the experience is split in like these separate programs, separate applications, and every application is also actually implemented as like in multiple layers and multiple building blocks. And so if you're a user, you can just basically choose which applications you want to use, whether you want to actually interact with it as maybe as a smart contract user eventually, or actually as a financial user, or actually as a provider of financial services. And as a developer, you also can choose and select which parts of interaction with this ecosystem you want to pull into your application. And for example, if you want to implement some kind of a wallet, you can just choose and select which building parts of Yoroi you want to pull into your new application. And for example, if you want to build something that will be at the same time as a wallet, but also as some kind of an explorer or a monitoring system for the blockchain, you can just pull both Yoroi building blocks and Seiza building blocks and bring all the experience together, but with your touch, with your own view on how you want to deliver it. And so our plan is to see this ecosystem of projects and applications to grow along with Cardano growing, and to see the new features and experience like emerge with every new major version.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's basically what I was working on, among other things. So all this planning, future-proofing features, all this stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
we know you guys have been busy, you and Sebastian both, because everybody on Telegram misses you guys. They've been saying, where's Ruslan and Sebastian? Well, they're writing code. That code ain't going to write itself. Sebastian, you were going to say?
Yeah, one thing I also want to add is, on top of what Ruslan said, is that we don't just help build the Cardano ecosystem from the Emurgo point of view. So obviously we have Yoroi and we have Seiza and we have the developer tools that Ruslan was talking about earlier. But we actually contribute code to the Rust code base fairly regularly. I've contributed a lot of code to it. Ruslan's contributed a lot of code to it. We have other members of our team who also contributed to either the Rust code base directly or to the Rust code base ecosystem. So in a sense, we're also helping to build out Shelly. And as we build using open source technologies, we're also helping improve the overall open source ecosystem. And, you know, we've made pull requests to Flow, to Selenium, these kinds of large open source projects that we're also contributing to in hopes to help build our ecosystem using these tools.
Cool. So if someone like Aidatainment, like Tommy over there, wanted to build an Apple Watch feature that shows the charts coming off of Seiza, they could use the tools you're talking about and make the little widget. Yeah? Is that pretty much how it works?
Yeah, I mean, we hope to build support for basically anything you'd want to do with Cardano. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right?
Awesome. Yeah. Flexibility and availability.
What was the most challenging part in building Seiza?
Well, not to sound like too smart fancy, but probably just trying to get everything right. Like building Seiza actually was like a different experience probably from building Cardano Explorer back in the day, or even like ADA tracker or ADA scan or something like that, just because it came at a later stage in the life of the Cardano ecosystem. And so we already had like some experience as Explorer users. So basically we already knew what we have and what we lack and what we like to use in different explorers and what we don't like to use in different explorers, and like especially what we as IT persons or as developers, what we would like to see from all the different perspectives, and especially what we see other people doing and what we don't want in any form or case to take from them. Like, it's not our intention in any way to try to go and try to re-implement absolutely everything that was already done, because we always try to complement the ecosystem. We always try to provide some of the redundancy, just because it's the blockchain space is basically requires it, always consists of it. It's always great to have multiple explorers. It's always great to have as much good wallet implementations as possible. It's actually part of the security of the network. And so we are trying to do this. And so finding this balance, trying to implement all the stuff that we think would be great to have, but in trying to select what we shouldn't even try to do because someone else already did it like in the best form possible. And so there is no point to try and just provide the same thing just to confuse people more. So just finding this golden balance in providing just the right experience when users can visit the website and feel like it's the right balance of everything. Like, it's not a clutter of something, just when someone just tried to pull as much as possible with as little quality as possible usually. But not trying to be absolutely everything, but trying to be just the right thing. And that actually was pretty much the most challenging and different part, because yeah, everything else is development, and we have, I think, just enough experience in development to not like have too much problems on that side. But trying to design the right thing and the right experience for users, that's the challenging part. And of course, getting this absolutely amazing for me purple haze, purple rain design style, which I absolutely love, was probably a big challenge too.
You like those colors too, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. When I saw the first like design proposals, the first mock-ups, I was absolutely speechless. It's like, it's just perfect. I can't do anything with it. I just love it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I can see how that's challenging though. With an open source project and how big Cardano is, everyone's doing their own thing, and Emurgo's working, IOHK is working, the foundation's working, as well as community members. So finding that balance of not overlapping certain projects while still maintaining your focus and meeting your objectives. So that's difficult. I had one quick question before we hit the Reddit questions. I get this question a lot, so I wanted to ask the three of you. So let's say when staking goes from testnet to mainnet, and people are staking within Daedalus, will people be able to stake within Yoroi day one, or is there going to be a slight delay between being able to stake in Yoroi versus being able to stake within Daedalus? How is that going to work as far as the time, or is it going to be right after each other or at the same time?
So related to that, we already started working on like how to stake in Yoroi, and we are doing something that is going to help us like speed up the process. We're going to be reusing a lot of components for staking from Seiza into Yoroi, so that's going to speed up the process a lot. And we want to have Seiza and Yoroi already working for staking for like the third testnet, which is the one that's going to bring incentives. So you can be sure that Yoroi is going to hit like staking the same moment as mainnet is ready, because you're going to already be seeing like how it works with the third testnet.
Okay, that's good to hear. Good to hear.
And is the staking simulator fully operational now? Like as a simulator?
No, because right now testnets are not like operating, so we don't have to connect to anything.
Okay, so when it does come online, users will be able to interact with it and get a little bit of feel for how staking works before they actually try to do it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before, that in Seiza we're going to be adding a new button, a drop-down menu that you're going to be able to change between mainnet and testnet. And when the third testnet comes up, the one that's going to have like the incentives with staking, you're going to be able to like give it a try before it goes to mainnet. So you want to be able to see and understand a little bit more of how staking works through Seiza and even through Yoroi. And this is going to happen with like you could like even connect to this testnet and get like testnet ADA, so you can play around with it like without like the fear that maybe you could be losing your ADA like by testing some stuff.
Excellent. Thank you. Philippe, Reddit questions now.
Yes, that sounds good. So thank you guys. That was a great first half. So we're going to hit the Reddit questions now. Thank you to everyone for leaving Reddit questions. The subreddit is always active for every episode that we have. So if you have a question, we're going to try our best to get to it, time permitting. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first question from Reddit. And the first question from Reddit is from Tony from Shoshone. And Tony from Shoshone is an active question asker, so thank you. Is Emurgo collaborating with IOHK on the development of Atala? And does Emurgo have a strategy for onboarding future Atala users into Cardano?
So that's a two-part question. Is Emurgo collaborating with IOHK on the development of Atala? The first part?
Okay, so I'm going to take those two questions. The first one, Atala, the entire development is being done by IOHK. Obviously, we work always like really close with them. And the idea is that later on, Emurgo is going to try to help them make Atala work with like companies, because as you guys know, Emurgo has like really good relationships, and we are like in multiple countries in Asia. And these are like a really interesting market for like Atala. Specifically, for example, Indonesia, which is a huge market that's continued growing like crazy, more than 100 million people. Obviously, Japan. So the idea is that we're going to get to participate in Atala later on, but right now the entire development is being done only by IOHK.
Okay.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I want to add for the second part, I mean, the entire point of Atala is to be the bridge to Cardano. So when they ask, will Atala be used by Emurgo as a way to onboard people to Cardano, it's like, obviously, yes, that's the entire reason that this project exists.
Okay.
All right, cool. And what we've done is we have the Reddit questions sorted by top, so the most upvoted questions are up the top there. The next one comes from Reddit user Singverse. It segues from the last question. They're both very complimentary. And from Singverse, thank you for asking the questions. The question there, it's about a four-part question. The first parts are, what is the relationship between Emurgo's different companies, Japan, Indonesia, India, etc.? Are they all subsidiaries of a bigger entity, Emurgo, or are they independent organizations?
I'm going to take that one as well. So basically, if you think of Indonesia, India, all of them, Japan, all of them are part from Emurgo, which is like one entity. There's another entity that's unrelated to Emurgo, which is called Emurgo HK. That one is a completely different entity. There's like some confusion because we both share Emurgo in the name, but only those two are split. And like a thumbs up rule is that Emurgo HK doesn't have other subsidiaries like in other countries. So Emurgo HK is their own thing, and everything else is like pretty much interconnected.
Okay, thank you for that. And I actually have it sorted by best. So best comments at the top. And the second half of Singverse question is, also, does Emurgo's mission statement drive Cardano adoption and bring value to ADA holders and apply to all these organizations? So of all the organizations, does the mission statement apply to all of them, or do they have different goals and objectives? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So basically, that's the mission statement from Emurgo as an entity. And as I mentioned just before, there is another company called Emurgo HK. I can't talk for them because they're not part of our organization. So maybe they have another statement. I don't know. Don't know that much about them actually. But related to Emurgo, Emurgo has like different business models, like academy, investments, R&D, consultancy, and advisory. So maybe some countries are going to be focusing in one specific business model. So, for example, in India, they're pushing for the academy program. So they're going to be pushing for, obviously, Cardano, and that's why we also help them because, for example, in R&D, we help them put in all the content related to Cardano. So I think it's going to be like very interesting for people in India to be learning about that. But not all these different subsidiaries are going to be doing everything. So, for example, right now it's not in the plan that Emurgo India is going to be like doing investments. The investments are going to come from another subsidiary. For example, Japan is doing like consultancy. So all of them, they're like pushing for Cardano, but all of them, they're going to be like focusing in like different roles because the market is different, and basically we want to leverage or the different like opportunities in different countries for like the greatest opportunity, basically. Like so the idea is to attack different stuff that has like better opportunities, and that's why the plan could be like different, a little bit different between different subsidiaries.
All right. Thank you, Nico. And also thank you, Reddit user Sigverse. Philippe, next one.
All right. Next question is from Unterd and says, hi, guys. I was disappointed to hear the news that Traxia no longer plans to migrate to Cardano, and they have now moved to the Binance chain permanently. Please, could you ask the Emurgo guys whether there will be any benefit to Cardano from their investment in Traxia, and how they plan to manage further investments in startups to ensure they benefit Cardano? And at the end of the question, they said, P.S., this question may be appropriate to other people in Emurgo, but just asking in case they know something about it.
I can't talk as part of Traxia because I'm not part of Traxia. We are one of like the different investors in Traxia, but the thing is that Traxia as a company, you need to put in their position because they're a company that needs to succeed. And sometimes we like it or not, you need to take like difficult decisions in the way that you need to continue moving forward. And right now, there has been like some difference in timings between what they need as a requirement as a company and what we can offer from Cardano. So they're moving to this other blockchain, but they have like a really strong connection with Cardano. So the possibility of coming back to Cardano is like super open and depends of like the needs that they have and if we can like fulfill those needs with the Cardano network. So the option is like open for them to come back, but that is something that is going to be like later on because the fiduciary responsibility of like the CEO of like the people in the company is that the company needs to succeed and not die, and they need to continue onboarding clients. And if they can't be doing that right now with like some specific conditions, they need to take like the best decisions for the company.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I can add a little to it. So I also can't speak just for Traxia, but last thing that I heard from them is that the decision was not just like refuse to do anything with Cardano completely and just move to Binance. The decision was to rethink the whole architecture idea of how they plan to do things and eventually try to actually back their system with connections to multiple blockchain systems. And so the idea was to just try to follow step in step with which systems are getting the development right now. And so if they technically get the chance to implement connection with the Binance system, they will go for it. Next thing, if a month from now they get a chance to implement another connection with a new chain that they like and that also starts supporting their system, they will go for it. And so the idea, from what I remember, was to just actually, instead of just waiting for one system that, like, obviously some timelines might change and all of that. So instead of this, try to be as flexible as possible and implement connections with multiple systems and as soon as it's possible, which, I don't know, for me sounds like a really reasonable decision from the project management point of view, at least. So when I read about it, I only thought that it's like super interesting and rational and actually sounds pretty smart. And yeah.
Yeah, some people viewed it as kind of a kick in the junk whenever they moved over to the ByteDance chain. But, you know, people got to make tough business decisions. And sometimes, like maybe when Cardano has smart contracts after Go, when we could see some activity coming back that way. Philippe, was that it for that question?
Yes, that was.
Excellent. Our next question came from Singverse. Again, another one from Singverse. Thank you for that. And the question is, other than Yoroi and Seiza, both awesome products, is there any other project that Emurgo's engineering team is working on or contributing to?
So basically, we are like in the final phase of a specific project. Maybe you guys already know it by the name of Icarus. So Icarus works pretty well with like what we know as Byron, but for everything that's related to Chelly and the road to Chelly, because, for example, we are going to have an update, as HK has explained multiple times, to Ouroboros BFT, Byzantine Fault Tolerant, and then we're going to move to Ouroboros Genesis Browse. So this part is not compatible with the current version of Icarus. So we were working with LHK and also the Cardano Foundation to create a new Icarus that's going to be like the Emurgo's version of Icarus that's going to be available to work with like everything that's related to this new protocol upgrade. And Ruslan has been like working really hard on this, so I will leave it up to him to tell you more about it.
Oh yeah, so that's basically the continuation of this idea of trying to provide as much as possible of like a connecting point for community and for developers with the ecosystem with as modular approach as possible. And so we really like the Icarus project from IHK, obviously, and we are using it for Yoroi. And that's basically what Yoroi grew from. And we obviously want to not only try to update some parts of the software for our own use, but we want to contribute to the community and help the IOHK as much as possible where we can. And so the idea was that Icarus is a great project. Emurgo is like the most probably known user for this project, and it needs to be updated for the upcoming Shelly. And so who best could do it is like the company that actually uses it every day, works with it. And so we took this challenge to implement the new version, which just supposed to be like as much as possible for the first version. It's supposed to be as compatible as possible with the previous version of Icarus, just as a drop-in replacement, so that everyone else who uses Icarus would not suffer any like migration costs in order to just be able to survive Shelly hard forks. And so they could just take this new modular code base, put in place of what they were using, and everything's supposed to just continue working in the way it works. But we also have like an extensive roadmap for what we want to do with this idea and this development tool further, which also integrates basically with everything else what we are doing with Seiza, with Yoroi, with mobile versions, with APIs, everything else. And so yeah, that's interesting. We are hoping to open source it very soon, and then there should be like a blog post explaining how to migrate from Icarus to this new version.
Okay, so do you have a name for it yet? It's a new version, or it's a different version of Icarus? You got a name?
Nico probably can answer this.
So it's a completely different version. So Icarus was, for example, using the Haskell. We are building this version in Rust, and it's going to have like a completely different name because actually it's going to be like a different product, but it's going to be feeling like the same grown.
Okay, cool. Maybe do a community contest and say, hey guys, here's some names. Let's which one would you like to see? Just a thought.
Yeah, it could be interesting. We already have like 2 or 3 ideas. Maybe we can open source them, but
it's got
I don't know.
It's got to follow the Japanese theme, though. I like that theme, the Seiza and Yoroi, even though I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, the thing is like because Emurgo is like more of like not only like a Japanese company. One of the previous questions was like, oh, what's going on with like Indonesia, India? So actually, we want to start like naming some things differently, so people don't have like the conception that Emurgo is just a Japanese company. And actually, we have been expanding a lot to multiple countries. So that's why we are going to like, but we are going to try to have like a different branding than IHK, so people don't get confused, obviously. And also something that I would like to say related to this, that me, Ruslan, and Seiza, we are part of the R&D team. So the things that we are talking about right now is only about the R&D team. We have all the projects also working on in R&D, but also Emurgo is doing like investment, like direct investments, like Series A, Series B. Also, we are doing investment through DILA, which is our acceleration program. Also, we are doing an academy program in India. Also, we are doing advisory, and we are like working with like multiple companies. And also, we have like a new stuff coming up, but it's not up to me to tell about those because it's part of advisory, which has another person that's like leading it. So Emurgo is doing a lot of things, and we are just talking about right now about R&D. So so people don't mix everything together. I think it was like worth clarifying right away.
Yes, thank you for that, Nico, because we do get finance and business related questions, but this particular podcast is R&D focused on that segment. So
yeah,
something to add, as I mentioned earlier, we contribute to the Rust code base also quite a lot as well. So it's not just Seiza and Yoroi and this new project. Things like the WebAssembly bindings, for example, like if you want to build an application that uses Cardano and needs to use the cryptography from Cardano, the best thing to do is use the WebAssembly bindings for the Rust code base. And that's something that we co-authored with the IOHK Rust team. Similarly, if you've ever used the HTTP bridge by the Rust team, we've also contributed a lot of code and features to that code base also. So it's not just stuff from us, but also contributing back to the Cardano project in general.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Philippe, why don't you take the next 3?
Okay, sounds good. So this is from Andy, and this is a question from Ruslan. When Visa?
It's a joke.
That's just cruel, man. That's just cruel. Yeah, so that's like some people just went, yeah, I understood the reference. Yeah, so basically, unfortunately, I wasn't able to visit IOHK Summit this week. Giant thanks to US government for this. But yeah, they didn't want to see Russian spies in there for some reason. So yeah, hopefully the answer to this question is hopefully next year.
Yeah, hopefully. You know, Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay is right down there near Florida. Maybe they'll give you a visa to Gitmo. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I heard the weather is good in there.
And the next question is from Joan33. Just a shout out from our Russian-speaking community to Ruslan. We miss you, buddy. Any plans for Emurgo to engage with Russian-speaking community countries? I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Evgeny? How do we? E-V-G-E-N-Y.
Evgeny. Yeah. Well, I miss you too, guys. But unfortunately, there are times when we need to focus on our work really well. But hopefully, like there are some fruits to come out of it, out of this focus, and we are to release new great stuff, interesting projects, interesting ideas. But yeah, I really hope to like try to join the discussions and contribute sometimes in the chats somewhere else. But yeah, lately.
And also to answer the question more directly, Yoroi is already available in Russian. Seiza will be available in Russian in the near future. So we're providing options for people in the ecosystem to use Russian to interface with our products. Although we do not have any specific offices in any Russian-speaking country, we're trying to do the best we can.
So Russian for us like really important, and actually a lot of people that work for R&D they speak Russian. So if you have noticed, like Yoroi, Seiza, Seba was mentioning, they're always like super up to date with Russian, and even like the videos that Seba does, like the updates, most of them also they're like with Russian subtitles. And so although we don't have like a specific like program related to conference, stuff like that, everything like related to information that's coming from IRD is always with support to Russian. And even we have like Russian support if you have like a problem, and if someone is like asking for help, we have like a person like almost working full time that's a native Russian speaker.
Yeah, so one of the goals of Emurgo is to build a global Cardano. So you might also have seen that on the Emurgo website. And we really try and achieve that, which is why you might have noticed Yoroi has like a huge list of languages that we support. And the way we support this many languages is not by just outsourcing it to some random firm. We work with the community, with our staff to translate the features and make sure they're accurate. So we have multiple people check them. So we take it very seriously to try and reach a global audience and not just focus on just the English market or just the Chinese market or just the Korean market like a lot of other crypto projects do.
Okay, sounds good. And then my last question out of my bunch is from Rodrigo Gonzalez Lascano, and says, hi guys, what are the plans for Emurgo next year after Shelly is launched? Cheers.
Something that's like pretty interesting is that the crypto market moves so fast that's like difficult to plan like 1 year ahead. So a lot of like the planning from Emurgo goes around like to the different milestones related to Cardano, because we are building a global Cardano. So we are mostly doing planning quarter to quarter, depending what are like the biggest need from like the community and what it needs to be done. So I can't tell anything about like the next year because we're like focusing in Q3 and Q4, and the most important part is like Shelly and staking. So that's our biggest worry right now.
Okay, you know what I like about Emurgo's approach? You know, in general, the Cardano roadmap kind of leans heavily on IOHK, but Emurgo's, once in a while, you get this update on Twitter and it's like, surprise, there's new features. Yay! I actually think that's kind of cool. It's a nice mix. Surprise, we have payment URLs now. Okay, cool. That's awesome. All right, Philippe, should I go to the next one?
Yes.
All right, it's awkward question time. Okay, not to make fun of the questions, but I've got a question from Oracle 333-555. And all questions are good questions. But sometimes the questions, I mean, here you go. This is a good question. Does Emurgo sell ADA to fund its projects or pay its employees?
I'm going to take that one. So basically, right now, the podcast is about like research and development, which is R&D, and I'm like the lead person in that department, and also Ruslan and Seba play like a critical role. But this is more of like a question for like the entire company. So that's a question for like the captain of a ship, or like more like of a formal response. So as a leader of like the technical part of Emurgo, it's not something that's like to me to say. So probably it's like a good question for like other channels from Emurgo to answer. But right now we're just focusing on like technical development and other stuff like that.
Okay, so you want me to table that question for later, whenever someone who's more appropriate that can develop some sort of response?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Next question is from Brinker59, and Brinker59 asks, hi guys, could you please ask them why Emurgo HK is so quiet for the last months? We don't see anything coming from them. They did a very bad movement linking Cardano image to IronX project with lost bad image. Just bear with the English here, because this is a good question. There's a problem with the IronX project, and it brought a bad image to Cardano. And since its launch, they don't say anything, they meaning Emurgo HK. I know they are from Emurgo, Japan, but I'm pretty sure they all work closely. Thank you. Any comments on that?
So I'm going to try to answer that question as much as I can, because the first part, like you guys know, like the head of like the technological part, and the second part is, as we were discussing, is actually another company. So just to be honest, I'm not a fan of Iron FX, and I have never been. But we are Emurgo, and we are not Emurgo HK, which is Emurgo Hong Kong, basically. So we don't have a say in whatever they do. So also, it's not like we get like a report of why they're doing things or stuff like that. We also not part of their decisions or anything, and sometimes I just get to know what they do through news. So I can't add more than that. And actually, if you want like a formal response, I would like push for them to like try to answer, but I can't say anything because I don't have the information, and it's actually like a different company, like I was saying before. So basically, Emurgo HK is their own company, but everything else that's Emurgo is like together. So they're like some sort of like a little bit like the outcast, but unrelated to like organizational structure.
Yeah, nobody from Emurgo Hong Kong has ever contributed a single line of code to any of our GitHub repositories. There's absolutely no relation to our R&D team.
Okay, that's fair enough. Sometimes the answer is I can't answer that. That's fair enough.
So for the viewers, Emurgo Hong Kong is on their own side. They're doing their own thing. They're not affiliated. And then we have Emurgo Japan and the subsidiaries, Emurgo Indonesia and Emurgo India and whatever other projects you have underneath you. That's for viewer knowledge. Sounds good?
Yeah, that sounds good. And if Emurgo HK would like to leave a comment on that Reddit thread, it's at the subreddit The Cardano Effect. And that was the question from Brinker59. Thank you, Brinker, for asking the questions. Much appreciated. Philippe, next one, please.
Okay, I'm scrolling down to the next one. FR Mix asks, it's a three-part question. For which types of applications do you believe the Cardano blockchain to be the best fit, and why? Financial applications excluded. I don't know if you want to tackle one by one.
Okay, so I can take that one. So basically, what is like super important about Cardano, as we know, and is that we can split it in 4 big parts. The first one is scalability. The second one is sustainability. Basically, it means that you're going to have some people working in the version 1.0 of the protocol, and maybe even like a little more. But if we want a protocol that's going to last like thousands of years, you need like constantly development, and for that you need like a sustainable way to like pay developers, because the protocol is like really hard. So you need like experts in their field, and also it's not like they can like work for 5 hours, 7 hours. They need to do it this full time. So sustainability is really important because you actually need to pay people so they can fully dedicate to put all their energy in making the best out of it. And the third part is interoperability. So basically, it's really important to be interconnected, because you can think this as the internet. Internet's like really amazing because everything is interconnected. But before we had like this local internet, which basically are called LAN. But if you can't talk to like the other LAN that's in another country, it's not that powerful. So it's like really important to have interoperability within blockchains, and even with more of like the traditional world. And that's like also a little bit the gap that Atala is trying to fill. And the last part, as we know, there is like the security of the smart contracts. For example, in Ethereum, there has been lost more than $400 million. So this scare like financial institutions or companies that want to do stuff, because it's like seems dangerous. So having said that, the biggest use cases for blockchain, we can see split it in 2 parts. The first one, that's more for like the private traditional world, which is like, for example, with transparency, because you can think of like a government, and they could be have like a lot of like multiple different systems. And actually, when they want to do a transparency report, is it really transparent? Like maybe went through so many revisions that actually the data is a little bit cooked. But if you are using like blockchain underlying like actually like the system of the government, maybe some parts are going to be private, but other parts could be like public, and you could be sure that that's transparent because it's the same information that they're using, and maybe you are going to be able to connect directly to the node to see that specific information. So it's actually going to be real information and not information that's going to be good. So also another use case scenario that's like pretty powerful is that with blockchain, you can lower what is like corruption. In which way? So basically what happens with like a lot of maybe not super developed countries is that they keep the records in books. And for example, if you own some land, you're going to be in a book and your name is going to be there, but you just can delete, someone can just delete your name and put someone else's name. So for $500 maybe, now you're the owner of like some land that belonged to someone else. But with blockchain, it's really difficult because, as you know, the information is distributed. So even if you can bribe one person that has access to one node, it's not enough to change what all the information, all the nodes are handling. So bribery maybe still is going to exist at a really high level, but bribery in the lower level, it will be like almost impossible. And actually, this could have like a huge change in the perception of the people, because usually you can tell that the big bribery is like bad, but usually people don't feel so close. But when your land gets confiscated or moved to someone else, you feel like pretty harsh. And you know, like people close to you also can feel that pain. So maybe that can also make like the people like feel better and feel like society is like moving forward, because these things will start being like really uncommon. So this is related to the private part. Even like I could tell another example, which is like related with supply chain. Right now, we can see a lot of counterfeiting, especially with like products or even like with drugs, like pharmaceutical drugs. And for example, if you go to some specific countries that I shouldn't actually say by name because it could be like too direct, but if you go to a drugstore or a pharmacy and you buy some drugs that were prescribed by your doctor, maybe you're actually eating sugar pills and you're paying like the full price, and maybe sometimes it's like life-threatening drugs that you actually need. And so it's like pretty serious problem. And this happens because the boxes that have like the medicine, they have like QR code or like a barcode, and you can scan that and try to do supply chain follow-up, but you just open the box and choose whatever is inside, or you could copy the box and you're like tracking the wrong thing. So for example, some of that problematics we are trying to solve through DLab, and we have a project that's like pretty interesting, which is called HelixWorks. And what do? They create synthetic DNA, and we can store information in that DNA. So if you combine this DNA with specific information with the specific drugs, you can actually be reading the information from the DNA, and you are going to be able to track the real thing. I know this sounds like sci-fi, but these guys have been working on this for like 5 years around, and they already have this working. And I hope to see more of like this real use case soon. But everything that's related to drugs is like a slow process, because if you are like adding DNA, which is completely safe to add because you are always adding DNA to everything. For example, if you eat an apple, that's DNA. So, but if you add anything to drugs, it needs to get like FDA approved again. So FDA approves like a long process, so that could take long. So this is like related to the private part, but from more of like the public part is one of the biggest improvements of blockchain. It's not like just technology for the sake of the technology, but actually there is a lot of like financial services that has a lot of middlemen. So in business, the best thing to see if something has value, if you can see that people have like a better value perception, but this is a technology that's not giving you a value. So the other thing that you can measure if something is being useful, if you can get like a better price for something. So with blockchain and interconnection of financial services, you can actually cut the middleman. So something that maybe you will be paying like 20 or 30% extra because of the middleman, it's going to go down in 20 to 30%. That's amazing because it's money, and that's a huge competitive advantage. So although that person said like that he didn't or she didn't want to hear about like financial part, that's like the strongest financial use case for blockchain related to the public part. So I still wanted to answer the question, so that's why I also mentioned the first part of like the private use of blockchain. But for the public part of blockchain, the financial part is like the strongest by far.
Fascinating, fascinating. I like that example that you gave with HelixWorks and synthetic DNA, and making sure that certain medication is not a placebo or counterfeit. That's fascinating. And land registry is also very important, because if you from a country that is not so affluent, even in affluent countries, bribery exists. But if you're on the lower economic rung of a certain country, you just get strong-armed by other people in that society, and they just end up taking everything that you have. So making sure that your records are on an immutable blockchain, I think that could help probably the most impoverished people actually try to make a step up in society and make a step up in their finances, and ultimately provide them more net worth over generations. So that's good. The next question that we have from this person, FR Mix, says, when looking at other blockchain projects, which features would you like to see implemented in Cardano, or do you see as potential interesting developments for Cardano?
Maybe this one could be cool, that maybe I give my opinion, then Ruslan give his opinion, and then Seiza.
Sounds good.
Okay, so at least for me, the thing that I'm like most passionate about that right now is not in the short-term roadmap for Cardano, but probably we're going to add it, is that I would like to see more of like zero-knowledge proof, especially applied to smart contracts, which I think is going to be like super powerful, and it's going to open up like a lot of like different use cases scenarios. For example, when you are betting for like different projects, usually you have like, again, a middleman that's going to like get like different bets for like, for example, I don't know, betting on the price of like coffee. So you're going to have like different suppliers, and the idea is to have a person that is holding all this information. But if you have like a zero knowledge proof and smart contract, you can cut this middleman again. And with zero knowledge proof, basically it means that all the data that's like sent to the smart contract is hidden from everyone, but you still can prove that's correct. So you can do calculations on top of that. So that is going to open up like a lot of more possibilities, not only for Cardano, but it will open up a lot of more possibilities for like blockchain in general.
Oh yeah, mine will be a little bit cheating, because what I wish to see the most is something that we are pretty much about to get in with Goguen. But I really would like to see, and I am like super hyped to see it eventually, the transaction customization. So basically, whenever you can send a transaction not only as just a transfer of value from one address to another address, but when you can make a transaction to mean basically anything, whatever you want it to mean, because that will immediately open just the open doors for all the creative like integration from all the devs. If you want to build something on top of Cardano, if you want to create some system of transferring some like immutable values that mean something to you, and they can mean absolutely nothing to all the other users, because it's your transactions. It's basically like it becomes open world, just absolute freedom of creativity on top of the blockchain. So that's something that I am looking the most towards, and we are getting it with Bluetooth and with Goguen. So wishing and waiting.
Ruslan, can you give us a concrete example of something that you may have thought about in this particular use case, or what exactly, can you conceptualize it for us?
One of the things is something that we already discussed, and it's like whatever Sire is proposing. So basically, you can implement metadata exchange between users before or after they are sending the value itself. So you can make users exchange invoices right on the chain. You can make users exchange like propositions of value. You can make users exchange like comments or I don't know, notes between your payments. So it's just the very, very tip of the iceberg of what is possible. And the best part is that it opens the road for creativity. So what I can come up with is like a 0.0001% of what the community can come up with. And it will be absolutely amazing to see, as I expected, because we'll get all the stuff that we can't even imagine right now, that people are thinking about and imagining and wanting to try to implement.
Hey, you know what? Can I also answer this? Sebastian's going to go next, but I want to answer number 2 also.
Go for it, Rick.
Okay. All right. So here's what I'd like to see integrated. If anyone asks me, hey, what's on your Christmas list? What do you want to see? I'm more than happy to tell you. Okay. So first of all, EOS Studio. This is another blockchain project, EOS, and that was EOS Studio is it's a graphic IDE for developing dApps on the EOS blockchain, and it's just a very integrated studio with all the tools in there. Now, I'm not a developer, but I showed that to some developers, and they thought, oh yeah, that's a pretty nice integrated studio for developing dApps, which is probably the directions things like Seiza and Plutus and Marlowe are going eventually. Some of the other apps that I thought were really cool that I would like to see Cardano engage with is OpenBazaar, which we brought up on the podcast before, and it would be as simple as adding Cardano as a payment method inside OpenBazaar. It works a lot like eBay or Etsy, and it would just be a matter of adding it as a cryptocurrency. There's another app called Keybase.io, and Keybase, it's actually really simple. I've already tested it with other cryptocurrencies. Currently uses Stellar. It'd be neat to add Cardano into Keybase, where you just simply, it's like a kind of like a Slack. It's like an open source version of Slack. It's kind of like a social media app. And I tested yesterday. It took 9 seconds. I said, okay, send this much to this person. Click. Here's the amount. Enter. Boom. And 9 seconds later, it appeared in the other wallet. And I was like, wow, that was cool. So those are just a couple of different apps. I think there was another one, but yeah. Oh, Haven. There's a new mobile app called Haven, which is the mobile version of OpenBazaar, made by the same group of people. And simply, it currently takes like Litecoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash, but Cardano isn't listed on there. Now, I know mine are kind of simple and say, oh yeah, just added as forms of payment in these other apps. They don't necessarily have products that I want to buy with it. It's just like, oh, that's a good idea. And as time goes on, it'll probably evolve into something. And also another thing like Saturn Network, which we had Sam on here on a couple of podcasts ago. And that would be to integrate Cardano with the Saturn Network, where you can exchange cryptocurrencies without a man in the middle. It's simply fully automated using smart contracts. So that would be post-go when smart contracts are online. So those are just examples from other blockchain projects that I thought would be neat to get Cardano added in there. So that's my Christmas wish list for Christmas 2020. Okay, cool.
To answer the first part of your wish list, by the way, if you check out Plutus Playground, they've done a lot of work. Like the Plutus team, they don't really get much attention because people are focused so much on Shelly, but they're doing so much work. And Plutus Playground right now, it's really easy to use, very pretty interface. So I think it's a really good ID in itself. For my wish list, I'd say maybe one of the top things is privacy features. So right now, if you think of Bitcoin, it's not just know your customers, it's everybody knows your customers, right? Everybody knows every customer to every exchange, everybody knows every customer to every website that accepts payments. And I feel like that's not really good, right? If you're a business, you don't want everybody to know who your customers are. In some jurisdictions, you even legally can't do that, right? There's some businesses that have a requirement where they can't say who their clients are, but that's not possible if all the payments are transparent on a blockchain. So I think privacy features are required to live in a financial world. even just comply with regulations for various countries, but also to give a sense of privacy to the everyday person. So that's one of the top ones. Another one would be interoperability. So I'm really excited about Nipapo's proof of stake sidechains, Fly clients, these kinds of papers and research for interoperability between blockchains. And so I'm really excited about it. And probably the other third thing is smart contract-based wallets. So Ethereum had some attempt to do smart contract-based wallets, and they historically, famously, messed it up and made mistakes costing hundreds of millions of dollars, and they kind of never went back to it really because of that. But I think the functionality benefit you get from smart contract-based wallets is makes it worth the effort if we have the additional guarantee given to us by Plutus and Marlowe and these new constructs, right? One of the reasons that this whole mess happened with Ethereum is because they're trying to write smart contracts-based wallets using Solidity, right? And this is like not just Solidity now; it's Solidity, way back when, where they didn't have the automated tools that they have nowadays. And so it's just asking for trouble. Like if you ever look at Solidity, the chance you don't have a bug is like very, very small. And so if we have a really strong smart contract programming language where we can tell the users of our wallet, hey, if you create a smart contract-based wallet, we have mathematical proof that's correct, I think we can get a good balance of safety and additional features.
Cool. Okay, so everybody got their wish list in. Does anybody have any other things to add to the wish list? What would you want to see from other blockchain projects implementing in Cardano? We good for now?
Good for now. Good for now.
Yeah, I can add something to that also, just in general. Yoroi is open source. As we mentioned, the other stuff that we're working on is either open source already or going to be open source in some capacity. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, damn, I want to help build this wish list, you can check out our projects on GitHub. You can reach us on GitHub or any other platform, and we're willing to help you build features. Just like I mentioned at the start of the podcast, the theme customization feature on Yoroi is originally built by a community member, and there's nothing special about him. There's no special connection we had. We did not know them beforehand. They just reached out to us, and we work with them to build it. So if you're also interested, definitely reach out.
So that would be a feature request on GitHub, yes?
Yeah, you can reach out to us on GitHub, on Twitter, on whatever platform works best for you.
All right, we have one last question. The question is, which projects are you currently pursuing that you can disclose from FR Mix? Thank you for your questions, by the way.
Several Ruslan want to answer that one from like R&D perspective.
Yeah, I think from a high-level point of view, we've already answered. I can answer some more near goals, like new features for Yoroi. One of the new features is the ability to transfer Yoroi wallets to your existing wallet. So for example, right now, if you want to transfer a dateless wallet to a Yoroi wallet, we have a very easy interface for you to do so. We do not have a very easy interface for you to transfer a Yoroi wallet to another Yoroi wallet or a ADA Lite wallet to a Yoroi wallet. And so we're building equivalent of the transfer feature for other wallets in the ecosystem. So I think it'll make it an easier UX for people, again, who bought a Ledger device or have a new wallet and they want to transfer all their funds. So that's one thing we're working on. We're also looking to integrate payment options into Yoroi for purchasing ADA, right? So if you're using Yoroi and you're like, oh man, this is an awesome wallet, I want to buy more ADA, we hope to be able to facilitate you doing that from within the app. Some of the stuff we're working on that we want to get done this Q3 is being able to see the balance of your wallets in other currencies, such as USD, Bitcoin, this other stuff. So that's also something that we're looking to work on. We're doing a lot of backend changes, because of Shelly and all the stuff that's happening. But whenever we have spare cycles, we know very well what the community wants because we read all of the suggestions on Twitter and Reddit and all the other platforms. So we have a list of features people request and priorities we have for them, and we kind of just go down the list. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, oh man, I have a feature for Yoroi, you go ahead and suggest it. We'll read it. Chances are we've already heard of it, and it's already on our list. So we're going through all of them.
The more people that ask, the more likely you're going to implement it, right? So keep asking.
Well, unfortunately, you never have enough engineers, right? No matter how many engineers you have, there's always more features that you want.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think this wraps up our Reddit questions. So, Rick, do you have any other questions? If not, we're going to get some final comments from our guests, and then we'll wrap this episode up.
I have no other questions. I do have a reminder for guests, if they're guests and viewers, but for the viewers, if there's a guest that you would like to see on this podcast, please let me know via direct message or email. We do not publish our guests ahead of time until we have a firm agreement that the guest is going to appear. That's why we do not publish a list of guests well out into the future, is because the communications between us and our guests are private between the podcast team and the person we've invited on the program. So if you'd like someone to be invited, please let me know by direct message or on Twitter, Telegram, however you can get a hold of me. Let myself, Philippe, or Sebastian know of a guest you would like to see on. Also, for our future guests who would like to come on the podcast, let me know as well if you'd like to be invited on. We never ask if you have an NDA agreement with any other organization. Obviously, that's not the kind of question you can answer, so we don't ask that. We also do not publicize our guest list until you are either prepared to come on the program or you've confirmed, yes, I'll come on your program. We don't put the Reddit list up until we know for sure that you are coming on the program and that you've agreed to join the podcast. Otherwise, we keep it private, just between the podcast team and the guest. That way, if you do need to cancel or if you do need to defer, it's easy and there's no public embarrassment from, oh, shoot, we had to cancel this podcast. So that's all I have, Philippe. Over to you, sir.
That was a good point. So I want to thank all the Reddit question askers. I appreciate it. We appreciate it here. It's been great engagement. We're on episode 35. Continue dropping your questions in the subreddit. We do try to get to all of them, time permitting. So today for episode 35, we had the Emurgo team on. We had Nicolás, we had Ruslan, and we had Sebastien. And all three of them, they're working very hard. You can go on GitHub and look at their commits. It's crazy how many projects Emurgo is working on. Make sure you're following Emurgo on Twitter, and they have a lot of updates constantly. So I wanted to leave the floor to Nico and Ruslan if you had any final words. I wanted to remind the viewers that a little tidbit, Nico was our first official guest on the Cardano Effect podcast. After he came on, the guests just started trickling in. So thank you, Nico, for that. And we appreciate you as always. And whenever the Emurgo team or whenever you guys want to come on again, just reach out and we'll make it happen. But Nico, Ruslan, the floor is yours. Anything you want to say to the community and the listeners of the Cardano Effect podcast?
I just wanted to say thank you for the invitation. It's always great to be here with you guys and be able to share some of the work that we have been doing R&D. So basically, just would like to talk about three things. The first one, that we have a program for accelerating companies called DLab, and right now applications are open. So if you have a project that's in the blockchain space for decentralization and could be built in Cardano, please apply. Also, we have a fellowship program. So there are some projects that maybe they're not looking for a monetary purpose right away, but they're looking more of research or experimenting, and it's something that could benefit Cardano. Also, please apply. This is a program that we could help you with visa to the US, or if you want to work remotely, we also could make it work. And it's a paid fellowship. So we basically pay you to do research, play, and do experiments that could benefit the Cardano ecosystem. And the third part is that we're always open to feedback and to have better communication with the community. So even if we are not in a podcast, try to write to us or reach to us in for example, in the Cardano developers Telegram or in Reddit, and we are happy to answer questions or any comments that you guys have about R&D, which is the thing that we control. and we also can try to answer some questions from Emurgo or let other people from Emurgo know about some specific questions.
Oh yeah, from me, thanks guys for having me on the podcast. It was absolute fun. And I don't know, from R&D point of view, just want to say that, yeah, we are working hard on not only making something as visible as Yoroi and Seiza and Yoroi Mobile, stuff like that, but we are hard working on actually like working on internal stuff that are closer to developer community and contributing back to Cardano, to IOHK projects, trying to help. And so if you are like from a development community and you want to do something with it, or you want to see some tools or work differently, or some tools added or implemented, reach out to us at any point. Yeah, developers Telegram, GitHub, Twitter, whatever you like. And yeah, we are always happy to have people to work with us. As Seb already said, we're always happy to see community contributions. We are very open to community contributions. We try to work with community. We try to see what community is thinking about and talking about and what people want to see. And yeah, we are lately busy with trying to unify the whole ecosystem experience, like across our mobile and desktop and web projects. And that's what we are working on internally. I mean, like on the backend level repositories that most of the people don't pay as much attention to, but there's like always hard work happening in that too. So yeah, feel free to always reach out to us.
Sounds good. Sebastian, did you have any final words? Okay. So that being said, thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the listeners. Thank you, all the subscribers. Make sure you subscribe to the Cardano Effect podcast. And until the next episode of the Cardano Effect, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.